Hey, this is Phil Lilly. I'm on Lake Como today, and had a couple of people ask me about the rig that I've been using. I went over this briefly on my last fishing report, but I was going to go over it a little bit more detail. What you can do is either on a spin rod or a fly rod. Okay. What I've done, I've got 4-pound line on this reel, and if you can see right there, I've tied on a piece of tippet material or just smaller line. This is Rio 6X. It's not fluorocarbon, it's mono, and I just tied it on with a triple surgeon's knot. Then I've got a float. It's just a 1.75-inch carrot float. You don't have to tie that knot or the tippet onto your line above your float. It just happens to fall right there. I usually put on about 2-3 feet of tippet material. It doesn't really make any difference how much you put on. You can put on as little as a foot if you want. It doesn't make any difference. Then I tied on a jig, and what this does, I usually tie on something that is a little bit brighter. It's got an orange head. This happens to be a 32nd ounce jig. And then I've got, but what this acts as is an attractor, okay? Fish will see this a lot further off and they'll swim over to look at it, but then they'll see this little zebra midge that I've tied about a foot, 10 inches below this jig, and you can either tie it to the eye or you can tie it to the hook itself, the bend of the hook, like I've got it here. And then you tie on, this is a 14 black zebra midge, and 9 times out of 10 that's what they're going to eat, because that's what they're eating out here. And what I've done is I've boated up here just a 1/4 mile from the resort, and I'm staying on the inside. Now the depth that you use really is dictated by, I mean, you can try 4 foot deep. That's what I've got mine at right now, 4 or 5, 4. If you come up here and you don't get a bite, go a little deeper. If you're fishing really deep water, like 10, 12 foot of water, then you might want to go a little deeper, but the key is to keep trying different depths. Find out where those fish are holding. If they're holding closer to the surface on cloudy or windy days, or if they're or late and early in the day when it's not quite as bright out. If it's bright or for whatever reason they're down deeper, set it deeper. Set it 6, 7, 8, 10 feet deep. Now see, I've got fish midging out in front of me. Well, there's one right there. They're a little bit over on the deeper side, so I might have to move over there. I'm not opposed, but I've got a lot of fish midging right in front of me. If you see fish hitting the surface, then you know you've got fish that are actively feeding right there, so throw at them. Especially in this real flat water, your float's not going to go under. It's just going to bob a little bit. And I just had a bite just before I moved my float. I move the float every 10 or 15 seconds for 2 reasons. One is to give the jig and the midge a little bit of life. The other is to make sure I've got a pretty straight line between my rod tip and the float. Because if I got any kind of belly in the line and I go to set the hook, I got a lot of slack in my line, then I'm not going to be able to set the hook. I'll just be pulling line. You don't want to throw so far that you can't really have a good eye on your float. If you throw so far out and to where that float moves and bobs and you can't see it, you're thrown too far. I don't know, maybe the zebra midge is not working. I've had to go real deep. I've gone probably 6 feet deep under the float to the jig. I'm fishing really close to the bottom. I'm probably in 6-7 feet of water. And he hit the jig though. Like I said, you can use a fly rod or a spinning rod in the same rig. Using a micro jig, foot down, you got the zebra, all on 6X tippet, 2 pound, and then the float, carrot float. And I got a little less than 5 feet down. Now, a fly rod, you usually do not use this big of a float. Ideally, you can use about as much float as needed to float whatever you're using, jig, fly. But for the sake of filming, I put on a big float so you can kind of see the float. See the fish. See the float go under and miss the fish. I got him that time. And he took the midge. Good job. The nice thing about using flies and jigs is the fish will hardly ever take the hook deep in its mouth. It's usually hooked real close to the edge of the mouth, usually in the nose, up underneath the upper of the mouth, and usually it just takes a little bit of a flick or a pair of needle nose or forceps to pop that hook out, and don't even have to touch the fish a lot of times, just to release it. So for catching and releasing a lot of fish, you're not going to hurt the fish by doing that. Well, I hope this has helped you see the method I'm using a little closer and learn a little bit more about using this jig midge combination. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. Thanks.